So at the school that I'm currently at, your reputation practically means everything. But that just means that depending on what you like, what skill set you have, and how popular you are, you're put into a sort of specific type of group. And from that point on, everybody will look at you that way. Cool kids, musicians, introverts, extroverts, you name it. But the groups that I sort of felt the most comfortable with growing up were the anime nerds and the musicians. So you've read the title of this video, and I want to talk about all of my experiences with bullying in the anime side of things. So you would expect that everybody who loved or adored anime in my year group was either bullied or looked down upon. And you're probably right about that one. But some of us, we would be bullied occasionally, while the rest of us, we were just absolutely cool with everyone. And I myself was one of those people. So the way my year group's anime people worked is that we traveled in pretty big chunks, and if any one of us was to get picked on, we would always have each other's backs. And I am happy to say that that tactic worked 50 out of 100% of the time. I'm not completely sure because my parents would always tell me, "Son, yeah, don't pick fights." Okay. And I never did. Good parenting advice. I wasn't a complete anime addict like my other friends were. But I suppose I did watch your average animes like Naruto, Parasite, and even on some occasion Dragon Ball Z. But the anime that I loved the most growing up has to be, and I have absolutely no care if you classify this as an anime or not, is Yu-Gi-Oh! Now some of you might be sitting there and thinking, wait a minute, that one show that solves the most serious situations with a simple card game is an anime, and this guy loves it? Now, sure. I know some of you might classify Yu-Gi-Oh! As a non-anime, but I absolutely loved it. I watched all the series arcs, I've collected multiple cards, and even in some different languages, and I've absolutely loved reading the manga until I fell asleep at night. And even on some occasions, I would take out my cards before my bedtime and just stare at one. That was how much that show meant to me. And yeah, sure, I guess I was picked on a little bit about it, but what can you do? Shoutouts to all the Yu-Gi-Oh! Players out there. Okay, so I have this friend who we'll just call... Broski, because he liked to say that word a lot. So me and Broski, we hang out a lot during break and lunch with a few other people, but sometimes there would just be those people who would just fall out of the blue towards him and just hit him or make fun of him for no reason. And he would always react the same with a swear and a bunch of screaming about how he doesn't care what other people think of him. But the attackers would always react the same way with a laugh and a bunch of other things I didn't really understand during their conversation. So then I would always have to be the one to split them apart from each other. That or either somebody else would do it. So this one time, me and two other fellow Yu-Gi-Oh! Players, we were having lunch at a table and we were having a match when all of a sudden, halfway through our match, one of the head teachers saw us and he came over to us and then he asked us, "What you kids playing?" Yu-Gi-Oh! He then thought for a moment and then he said, "Come with me." So the three of us all got up, and then he took us into a bare empty hall without a single soul in sight. He then proceeded to lead us into a bare empty classroom filled with desks and chairs. He then shut the door behind himself, and then everything went quiet as he pulled out a giant knife, and then he... Nah, I'm just kidding. That didn't actually happen. What actually happened was that he said we can come into this empty room whenever we want and play our card games in here. And so from that day forth, we held that secret room to ourselves, and we didn't tell anyone about it. But then 2 weeks go by, and I have to help my friend who has anxiety and take him under my wing to make sure he doesn't get too uncomfortable with everything. So I decided to take pity on him, and I decided to take him to the room. I tell him, "I'm going to show you this room that me and my two friends hang out in during lunch because you'll probably feel better in there. Just promise me you won't tell anyone about it." So we both head around to the room during lunch, and when we enter, the room was filled with like 30 more people than it originally had 2 weeks ago when we moved in. What did you guys do? Apparently what happened was that one of them had apparently brought in another person in the room, and that guy must have snitched the room to everyone else. So from that day on, we decided to let in a limited amount of people and we set down some rules. But then eventually, I guess I just got plain bored of the room, and then I started coming in less and less. And then before I knew it, I was in the music department jamming some sweet tunes with other musicians. So I suppose that even if you think you have people you can trust, there will always be that one guy who just snitches on everyone. And then eventually, I guess the club just flopped, and then everybody stopped coming. So I guess at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what group you fit into, as long as you find what pleases you. Also, don't judge people based on what they like. Everybody's an equal.